So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. And we're always bringing in new guests. We're always happy to bring in Kevin. He's not new anymore. He's our staple, along with Beth Burrows, will be on the way. We're hoping Charlie Heinemann will be joining us. But Kevin's got his own podcast, Breadcrumbs, and it's really great. I've already got listened to episode one. He's on episode two. He was just talking about that, and I really just want him to jump in and talk about his podcast for a little bit.
Hey, Coach. First and foremost, it is always great to be on the Political No-Brainer podcast, by the way. So thank you for inviting me in. And looking forward to talking to Beth and Charlie also. Yeah, so Breadcrumbs is the podcast for people who know it ain't working, right? And so in episode one that we launched on October 1st, I talked about where are we in America today? And I boiled it down to five topics. We reelected Donald Trump, the housing affordability crisis in the country, the 2-year anniversary of when Hamas attacked Israel, the terrorist attack of Hamas on Israel, that inspired the Israelis to respond in what we now perceive as the genocide in Gaza, the 4th year of the war in Ukraine, and the climate crisis, which we no longer think is real. And so that was the episode one, right? And then episode two was amongst all this madness, who are we as individuals? How can we find ourselves and understand who we are when everything is swirling around the way it is? And how can we how can we make a difference when all our problems seem too big to solve? So that was episode two. But I have completed my work and my notes, and I'm going to record later on today after we do this wonderful podcast, episode three, which will be launching next Wednesday, and it's going to be how we got here. And what I'm going to lay out is the story of four establishment administrations: the Clinton administration, the George W. Bush administration, the Obama administration, and the Biden administration. And I'm going to show what those administrations did to get us here. And then I'm going to contrast that with the Trump one, his first administration, and what he's doing now. And the whole point is to lay out we found ourselves in this spot. It's insane. No one thought I don't think any of us thought we'd live in a country that we live in today. So it's important to map out how we got here. Now that we understand where we are, how did we get here? And so it's going to be an exciting podcast. That'll be episode three. It'll be launched on Wednesday. What day is that? That would be today is the 12th. So that will be the 15th, Wednesday, October 15th, episode three of Breadcrumbs. Come
So
check it
I'm
out.
ex Go ahead.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
excited.
let me
Go
just
ahead.
mention that it is available on YouTube. It is available on Spotify, and it's available on Patreon, where you're
Patreon.
then invited to join the community. And so yeah, that's what it's all about, my friend.
Kevin, I'm excited. I love the fact that you said that the four staples, what were the four establishment administrations?
Administrations,
So
that's
we
right.
had Biden, we had Clinton, we had Obama, and we had Bush
George W.
Jr.
Bush.
Jr.
Yes,
W. So I
Junior.
like to
That's right.
preface Jr. because some people don't get the W and the H. Actually, I get them crisscrossed, and that's my job not to get them crisscrossed, but I do. And I'm
Yes.
not, so I am one to fumble here and there, and I'm okay with that because I think other people have fumbled and everybody's been okay with that. So,
Yeah, well,
big,
we've gotten some glimpses, Coach, as to how the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrats are just two sides of the same coin.
they
We
are.
got that, yeah, we
We,
got the glimpse when in the Great Recession in 2008, when in George W. Bush's administration was coming to an end, the economy was going to collapse, the financial markets were going to collapse, and literally Barack Obama suspended his campaign to go back to Washington because W. Bush's Jr.'s Treasury Secretary and Fed Secretary had advised us people to bail out Wall Street. And Congress said no. in September of 2008. They said no. And so Barack Obama suspended his campaign and John McCain suspended his campaign and they went back to Washington. And the thing about it is they were able to reverse the no vote to bail out Washington so that we passed the $700 billion TARP bill. And if you look at who voted in yes, the majority of the Republicans, particularly in the House, voted no. Why? Because they're conservative and they don't believe in bailouts, right? That's free markets, right? But who voted yes? Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, John McCain, all the establishment, on both sides joined hands with George W. Bush going into a presidential election to save Wall Street. See, that's a glimpse that you don't normally see. Normally they're fighting against each other, but when everything counted, they joined hands to participate. So this is one of the things this is why I lay out the establishment administrations and their policies versus the anti-establishment, which is Donald Trump, and what he did the first time around, which wasn't very anti-establishment, by the way, and what he's trying to do now. So it's going to be an interesting podcast.
Yeah, Brett. So Beth, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hey,
We're excited
Beth.
to have you. And Kevin was just talking about his podcast. We didn't get too far ahead of ourselves this time. It's an exciting podcast. He's got Breadcrumbs, his podcast. It's available on YouTube. It's available on Spotify. It's available on Patreon. He was just talking about the first thing he touched base on for episode 3 was the establishment administrations. And he considers the 4 establishment administrations. And I was going to question that for a moment. And I understand his logic more now as he explained it, but the 4 established administrations was the Biden administration, was the Bush Jr. administration, who is W, was the Clinton administration, and the Obama administration. The one establishment administration we left out, and I think we were kind of saying that it's the non-established, the one non-establishment administration we left out was not Donald Trump. It was Jimmy Carter. He was very much a non-establishment. Charlie just told me he needs a new invite, so let me see if I can get that out to him. Hang on one
Oh,
second.
that's
I couldn't find mine
fantastic.
either.
Huh?
I couldn't find mine either for some reason. It took like 15 minutes to come through.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Interesting.
Let me see what
I
I do.
found that if you scroll down in that email that you send, Coach, that there is the link in there, but up in the top, when you first pull it up, you can't. There's no way to log in. So
Let me
that's how
tell
I
him.
found it.
Sending it.
Well,
1 minute.
I'm in a new place almost every time we talk, so I think it's my computer just getting a
So
little
Beth,
ticked off.
while Coach is helping Charlie get in, tell
I'm
us
gonna
what's
get
going
him
on
in.
with you. How are you doing? Where are you at?
I'm at my dad's.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's
Yeah.
Oh,
pretty
you are.
there.
Look at you. Is that Florida?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he was I kept him up last night coughing. So he's not
Oh.
thrilled with me.
Oh, do you have like my wife had trouble breathing last night because she has asthma real bad, and man, this
Beth, are you
weather.
allergic to Florida?
No, seriously, last month when I was here last month, I felt like I was getting like a flu, just like, but the cough yesterday I went to the doctor because I've seriously had this cough for like a month. And at first it was, like that hockey cough, but a month with a cough, that's probably not good. I probably shouldn't be toting on these, cigarettes, but they didn't do it. They were like, nope, you're fine. But it kept him up all night. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
be, considerate and let him sleep. But I think his friend just called. He's having his own political discussion now.
Oh, nice.
Is that right? Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
There we
every
go.
Sunday at 10, he talks to his buddy in Maryland about, politics, and then I talk to you guys. So it's,
That's
it's a
That's
win-win.
fantastic.
great.
I tell you, it would be wonderful to have your dad and his friend from Maryland on sometime.
I know,
get those
right?
perspectives.
Oh, I'm sure they have a lot of them too. I hear my dad
Beth,
talking and, they get loud.
yeah, are you and your dad similar in your political viewpoints or
Oh, yes, absolutely.
okay, yeah, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like,
Well, yeah, with the rest of my family, no. But with my dad, yes. He's a little
They're
more.
in total agreement, right?
He's a little like what I love about him is that he will he'll watch like, you know, Joe and Mika in the mornings, and then in the afternoon he'll watch Fox, and then in the evening he'll watch, you know, MSNBC or CNN, and then he'll watch Bill O'Reilly. You know, like he'll get his news from all viewpoints and make up his own decision. You don't see that a lot nowadays. People, you know, they stick to their own algorithm. You know, you gotta
Yeah.
love cable.
21 at
Yeah.
gmail.com. All right, here we
Yeah,
go. I'm getting there.
I hear you. The sad thing about that's how I used to approach it too, Beth. I'm telling you, was a I would watch MSNBC and Fox News Sunday and try to get both perspectives, both, and ultimately what I found was both perspectives from that lens are not true, that they're too extreme.
Yes, I
They're too
agree.
extreme. So it's not like it's not you're getting two versions of the
Mhm.
untruth, and it leaves you lost, And so, seriously, I've had to broaden out into um, analysts who look outside of the country, outside of the Western-owned media, who are tend to be geopolitical, economic, and they tend to be connected to academia, and so therefore their perspectives are not as wedded to vested interests and stuff like that. And they just lay out the data and they're more inclined to just to say, okay, this is what's happening, and you can go verify it here, you could go verify it there, because the magnitude of the spin on, like you talk about
Mhm.
O'Reilly on, that was the spin master right there. I mean,
I
that
don't know if
was,
he still on.
no, I
I
don't
saw
think
him doing an
so. I think
interview with
he's on
somebody
the,
else.
he's moved from Fox. He's still, he's out there, but he's moved
Oh
from
yeah.
Fox. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's, no, that's so interesting. At least he makes the effort. At least your dad makes the effort to try to get diverse points of view. Um, but yeah, the idea that people lie the way they do to us, regardless of like the New York Times. I mean, if you can't trust the New York Times, and again, it's not liberal or conservative or progressive or MAGA. It is across the board in our establishment media that we're not being told just the
So
data. And
this is so interesting. We talk about the media lying to us, and it's kind of coming all together to me about how Kevin had mentioned there the four establishment administrations, and we left out Jimmy Carter, and that was where I was going. Is we kind of where he wasn't your traditional. Charlie either got it or found it himself, but
Yay.
Charlie is on.
good
This is
Charlie,
great. This
What's up,
is
guys?
True is back.
Charlie.
Oh,
You look
look at
Oh.
this! I
great.
love it. I love it.
Is it a Halloween edition?
Oh,
This is
oh,
my
nice.
Halloween costume.
America.
Okay,
Oh my
it's
God.
on now.
You're
That
Okay,
is
touching my
okay.
heart,
perfect.
This
Charlie.
is great. We are gonna get
Wait a minute. Am I
some
the only one
great.
dressed up?
Oh
No,
man.
no, no.
Charlie,
That's such
No,
a shame.
it's on tape, Charlie. It's not gone. It's
Charlie, you
embedded.
came
It's
in
embedded.
stirring the pot, brother. You came in
It will
stirring the
it
pot.
is archived. It is never going
Woo!
away.
MAGA Nation is riled up now.
My
MAGA's ready. Oh man, they've been riled a few times lately. But so let me just paraphrase real quick. Charlie's on. So Kevin's talking about his podcast, Breadcrumbs. It's available on YouTube and Spotify and Patreon. He was saying about episode 3, and he had prefaced um the four well, man, why do I lose that word?
Establishment
Establishment
administrations.
administrations. So that the four establishment administrations are very much so the Clinton administration, the Biden administration, the Obama administration, and the W administration, George W. the Jr. So I'm just prefacing Jr. not for us. Actually, I get him crisscrossed too, but Jr. is W. So, and I just found it interesting. And then they were talking about how the press deceives us. So one of the things I found is that we left out Jimmy Carter, who is often left out. And I thought, even though he's not your establishment administration, he was the guy that broke the mold of how we do business in America. And would America be different if we did? Would we have the Gaza war today if we actually invested in peace, not war? Would we have the conflict after? Would we have a base in what is it, Ohio, built by Qatar? I mean, we are really this is, like we say, the Trump administration is not an established administration. It's going out of its way to do things entirely differently. And my question is, are they really the wrong things? Is there some level of integrity here? I mean, Qatar does sponsor terrorism all over the world, and we're going to have this issue. We're going to have this Air Force base in Ohio, built by them. So, anybody want to jump in on that?
Are you sure it's Ohio? I thought it was Colorado.
You're right. I thought it was Iowa
or somewhere.
Okay,
I mean, it's somewhere in there. Somewhere in the. I thought it was more northwest. I mean, I don't think it really matters. So,
Yeah, it
It
really
doesn't really
doesn't.
matter because
I mean,
it's gonna be on
regardless,
U.S. soil.
it's on U.S. soil. Yeah,
It is Idaho. You're right. It is
It's
Idaho.
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 That
I was gonna
fits.
make a
Out by
joke on
me.
So, and now we're going on to this scenario where Donald Trump is saying, I solved the Gaza Strip war and I should be getting a Nobel Peace Prize. Kind of funny he didn't get it, but I mean, he didn't solve the Gaza Strip war. He sent over a 20-point peace plan, but Hamas would have agreed to anything at this point. And now again, you've got 2 million people that have been displaced. They're coming back to their home. And it's just decimated. I've made this argument before. We've dropped over 500 2,000-pound bombs on the Gaza Strip. Israel has dropped them, not us. The whole entire area is decimated. One bomb tears up the infrastructure for years to come. So now they're coming home to this disaster with some world aid, but of course they're going to realize there's no leveling up. Their life is this. So is that going to create another fundamentalist jihad? Is that going to create another issue for world peace and Middle East peace? I mean, what have we really accomplished here after 4 years of war in the Gaza Strip?
Has it been 4 years?
No, we just passed 2.
No, I was talking about
So,
Ukraine.
yeah.
We just passed 2 years. We just passed 2
Yeah,
years.
yeah, 2
Well,
years.
I mean,
and
I
we got-
think the question. It's always been really the question is what after, right? How are you gonna implement putting in some type of authority that's going to be approved by both sides? I mean, that seems to be always has been the most complicated issue, right? Because obviously Netanyahu's going to have one position that I don't imagine is going to jive with most of the rest of the world. So that'll be tricky. I mean, I haven't really looked into the details. I know it's some type of collective Palestinian type approved administration for the transfer. Do we know?
I haven't even heard of a government. I heard Hamas said basically anybody can take over at this point. They're just running with their heads between their legs. But of course they are. I mean they've been everything that's gone on there. To just say it's justifiable is just, like we said, genocide is never justifiable. So I mean, what's next? I mean, what can that government do? I mean, once the world aid runs out, everything's short-lived. There'll be billions flowing in the beginning, but once the world aid runs out, what do these people have left?
And where do the remnants of Hamas go? Where do they agree to go? Right? If they're not going to be taken, if they're not going to be put in custody for war crimes, are they just going to be allowed to kind of fall back into the cracks of what's left of Gaza? I don't imagine, any of the neighboring. Certainly, Egypt's not going to welcome anyone in that direction. I don't know about Lebanon, but
Charlie, I certainly have an answer for that. But hey, Beth, do you have any thoughts on the post peace Gaza and the Palestinians and what that will look like and how they will get incorporated?
I actually haven't been paying that much attention to it.
No, and I hear you. Okay, that's no problem because I know you have other things to say. Well, Charlie, yeah, the answer. Okay, first and foremost, we have international law that goes a long way to answer what you're asking, Charlie, in terms of what does this post-Palestinian state look like. First and foremost, you have a series of countries who are now recognizing Palestine as a country, okay? And you have guidance from international law. So as it relates to Hamas, cannot express this enough. Hamas, okay, when under international law, if you are an oppressed people, if you are an occupied people, right, you have the right to resist and resist violently, right? So it is the framing that, as horrible as October 7th was, the framing that it was terrorism, right? Right. Under international law it is not cut and dry like that, right? The equation to you could equate it in U.S. history to to the slave uprisings, right, and the violence associated with slave uprisings in areas that had slavery in the Americas, right? And the question would be, did they have a right to do what they did under international law even then? And history has shown no, yes, they had the right to do what they do. And current international law says that an oppressed people have a right to resist, even violently, against the people that are oppressed. And that any member of the Geneva Convention, which Israel is a member of the Geneva Convention, they do not have a right to oppress, right? In other words, to defend themselves against an oppressor, an oppressed people who are resisting their oppression, right? Israel did not have the right to put them down, right? Because they're oppressing them. This is why you have numerous United Nations resolutions leading up to October 7th saying that Israel had a duty to stop oppressing the
Oh, yeah.
Palestinians. This is
I
not
mean,
new.
Israel's been breaking international law ever since they went into the West Bank
That's right.
and Gaza. I mean, from go, right? And
I
then
mean,
it's just,
Yes.
and then every time there's a new settlement, they're like, people are outraged. I'm like, well, yeah, it's bad, but I mean, they've been doing this. They've never followed. They never followed what was established. When those areas were first designated to be Palestinian territories. They've been breaking that law from day one.
So Hamas, the idea that Hamas is, if we're going to have a tribunal for trials to hold people accountable, right? Under international law, Hamas is not the one at risk. It is the Israeli government that's at risk
No doubt.
because they engaged in genocide, and that is happening in the International Court of Justice.
Hey,
That
just look at
trial is about to come to an end. And
Just look at Netanyahu's plane path. Anytime he has to go anywhere, he has to like circumvent like just about every country in the world because
That's right.
he could be like taken into custody just about anywhere for his war crimes, and deservedly so, in my opinion. I mean, I think he's a monster. So,
absolutely. And
doesn't-
there's
doesn't-
no holding him accountable for any, like you said, other than the difficulties of daily travel, or other than the world opinion, as far as holding Israel accountable. I mean, clearly the Camp David Accords called for the West Bank to be the Palestinian state. That's all a part of, and everybody signed on to it. Egypt, the United States, Israel, we all agreed to it. That ultimately there was this concession. We're going to make Gaza, the Palestinians, their own little territory, the most densely populated area in the world, 2.6 million people in this tiny part of the world. And then you've got two supply routes coming in from Egypt, a tiny pathway, and the most supplies are controlled by Israel. Even the fact that the supplies are controlled by Israel is an issue, because you've even got people don't realize the everyday Britain donated ambulances to Gaza, and the Israelis said the chassis are too big. You can't use them. You can't have travel. You can't have permits to put them on Gaza roads because the chassis is big enough to transport weapons in these ambulances. So even ambulances that were donated by the world are sitting idle in hospital parking lots. So can you imagine just being a father who needs his child transported to a hospital and there is no ambulance coming? So when you think of the frustration that's going on, and I say frustration for lack of a better term, really, I do have some terms, but I'll say this for lack of a better term. When you think of what's going on in Gaza before, and I've said this before, Israel let this attack slip past the goalie. I mean, 4,000 old school Katyusha rockets are motoring across from Iran 2,600 miles in rough terrain over to Gaza, and a simple Toys R Us drone with a GoPro camera could have caught
Netanyahu let that shit happen. I mean,
He let it happen.
Doubt
He let it happen.
exactly what he wanted. You know, would be a just
Oh, really?
solution, which would never happen. So Israel should be forced to give up a piece of land connected to the West Bank, the exact size of Gaza. That should be given to the Palestinians, and then Israel, in exchange, can have that.
Gaza back.
You have Gaza back. So here you go. You go fix it. You get that back. Get out of the West Bank. Give the Palestinians something the size of Gaza, and there you go.
and let them run their country.
Sure,
And
Netanyahu
actually,
would go for that.
and actually, we have a legitimate governing body in the West Bank that's tried to work with the West, and that his name is Mahmoud Abbas. I mean, granted, he's about 90 now, but I mean,
I
there's
tell you, Coach,
options.
the Palestinians have no interest in Abbas because he has been emasculated. He is associated with the Israelis in keeping the Palestinians down
For
in
the
the West
sake of
Bank.
diplomacy, though.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, yes, but for the Palestinians to be sovereign, they have to choose their own leaders. And I can tell you, they have no interest. Open elections, Abbas has lost his credibility with them because he's perceived as too much of a co-conspirator with the Israelis in keeping the Palestinians down. I'm just saying factually. You'll go check it out. So I look forward
Ideologically.
to ideologically to elections monitored by the international community amongst the Palestinians, because again, Hamas was elected in 2005. There hasn't been any election since. So it'd be wonderful to see once we are recognizing a Palestinian state and the formation of a Palestinian government and to actually have an election where Palestinians are able to choose their leaders, right? This is what is coming up, right? And I think that's going to be very interesting. I just don't think it's going to be Abbas, only because of where he stands in the eyes of the Palestinians to this day. So that's but
So I don't want to
the
consume this session with Gaza. I want to get on to here at home. Beth brought up a
Well,
great
I
point.
do want to know if have they sent any of they said they were going to release the hostages. Have they
yes.
released any, or is there a set date? They have.
No.
They have
There's a
not yet.
process where they're going to start releasing the hostages, and it's important to note. Even when Biden was in office, Hamas had expressed multiple times the willingness to release all the hostages. What they wanted was a full hostage exchange. The irony of the situation is the Israelis have far more Palestinian hostages in their jails for crimes that have not been prosecuted for than
Right.
than Hamas has of Israelis. So
How many Israeli hostages are left? It's like 28, isn't it? I mean, living
yeah,
ones.
but they want the
Like a
bodies of the
handful.
ones who. Yeah,
There's
you're
not
right.
many, right?
There's not many who are still alive, but they want the bodies back.
What
It's
the
a
remains?
religious
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
Oh
Yeah, the
yes.
remains of course, and Hamas has agreed to do that. It's always been though. Well, okay, can you release the people who have not been charged with anything, who are held in Israeli prisons and have been for years? Can those people come back? I mean, it's supposed to be a prisoner or a hostage exchange. Well, we'll see how that works out.
How quickly they just take them back into custody once things settle down. I mean,
I mean,
that's
there's
Well,
still
this is
going to
the
always
be
going
problem.
to be the concern.
This is the problem. That's
right. I
exactly
mean,
right.
there's when you talk about Palestinian prisoners. I mean, there has been prisoners in Israeli jails that have never been charged for the longest time.
For the longest time.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah,
which was
Well, and
so
when Netanyahu ever faced, if you remember, I mean, he was already facing his own issues outside of this
totally.
for his behavior
Bribery.
within Israel.
Yeah.
He's been able to dodge that for all this time. It's like, is he ever going to be held accountable? I don't think so. I feel like he's.
Oh yeah, no.
No. And
I
there's even a sense
encourage.
in Israel that the people of Israel feel the same frustrations we feel. I'm thinking about
Yes.
a young Palestinian
Yes.
child. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm done with the whole technical part of it. I mean, I've read books like Peace Not Apartheid by Jimmy Carter. I get the technical part of it. All I'm really thinking about is children are dying every freaking day. And somehow, some way, will the world actually come to the realization that the first thing is you've got to stand up to Israel. You've got to say you can't keep doing this. You can't keep reverting back to this. I mean, Netanyahu's been prime minister, he's charged with his own crimes in Israel. The people of Israel are frustrated with Netanyahu, but he continues to prevail.
I'm saying, I mean, standing up to Netanyahu and other far right. I mean, the country overall is much more moderate than the
It's
people who've been pulling
extremely
the strings.
moderate.
So, who's gonna, that's who you got to stand up to. It's not, people say Israel. I'm like, it's not Israel so much as a pretty small faction that's controlling it and has for a long time. And I don't see how that. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the days to come. If it does, or if
If
this
it
holds
does.
too. I mean, it is the freaking Middle East. I mean, this could all change tomorrow. So
The thing is that the implications, what happens when the International Court of Justice that case ends, and they determine that Israel is actually guilty of genocide. Israel will be a pariah state. And the United States puts themselves at risk of being a pariah state because under our own constitution, we have ratified the Genocide Convention. Joe Biden led the ratification process in 1988. So we have a duty to
Senator
isolate
Joe Biden.
Israel. Huh?
He was Senator Joe
Senator.
Yeah, Senator Joe Biden
at the
when he was
time. At the
chairman of
time.
the Senate Judiciary Committee back in '88. He's the one who led the effort to ratify the Genocide Convention. And so what I'm saying here is the state of Israel is at severe risk, and how they resuscitate themselves,
Yeah.
just like South Africa was able to resuscitate themselves after apartheid, is they're going to have to purge the guilty people. Just what South Africa had to do, right? And they did with Nelson Mandela and the whole nine yards. And that, okay, if Israel goes through that process, they will be resuscitated. I ask everyone listening to this podcast to go back on the internet and look at Haaretz. Haaretz is one of the major Israeli newspapers, domestic newspapers. Look at their Sunday op-ed after October 7th, 2023, where they lay out in detail that the whole incident on October 7th is the fault of Benjamin Netanyahu, and why, right? Just read it yourself. The Israelis well know that this horrible, terrible slaughter of 1,100 plus Israelis, and the taking of the 252 hostages, all of that should have and could have been prevented, but was allowed to happen on purpose.
I was going to say, I would go beyond the step of fault. I would say by design.
By design.
By design. I'm saying it happened. I'm saying they moved the IDF away. They knew it was coming. They moved the IDF to the West Bank to expose their own people.
That seems so underreported, really.
Yeah.
And
The festival that they were having, that was the irony. The festival that they were having, and those people who got killed were pro-Palestinian Israelis.
Yeah.
This was Netanyahu's method of breaking the back of Israelis who wanted peace with the Palestinians, but to allow them to get slaughtered. Right? I mean, this is Haaretz telling the story. So I'm telling you, go check it out yourself. Right? All that bloodletting, all that course correction is going to be necessary for Israel to resuscitate themselves. But in the absence of that, countries are already isolating them. And they can't, their economy can't survive. They're a small country. They can't survive without international trade. And that's the first thing that's going to go. Energy trade, economic trade, all that's going because they're going to be a pariah state. So this is going to be an interesting transition. And Israeli money in the United States is not going to be able to buy their way out of the what's coming.
Where do you think the relationship between the United States and Israel is headed? Do you think we're going to still remain a staunch supporter of Israel, or do you think that this is frayed some edges?
That's a great question.
To answer that, there's an IPAC. It's an Israeli Political Action Committee, and it's huge and it's powerful, and it holds pretty much every American politician in their pocket. So the only thing that will change that is the public opinion, the power of public opinion. That's the only thing that will change that.
And where is that? Where is America's public opinion relating
Divided.
to Israel today? Oh, no longer.
You don't think so?
No. If you look at
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, this past week, after I heard a ceasefire, I was like, yay.
I found something interesting. I visited. Hang on, let me just tell you this real quick.
Okay.
I visited the RNC office, the Republican National Committee office in Lake County, Florida, and a woman, just this adamant conservative, said, "I stand by Israel." And what I found interesting is Charlie Kirk didn't even stand by Israel.
That's right.
He said so the power of public opinion, when you can, whether I like Charlie Kirk or not, when you can keep the attention of young people, you're really onto something. So this is the reality is that we all see, it's like I said about the Vietnam War. It was the first time war was televised. It's no longer. War is televised. We know the suffering that's going on in Gaza. We know the children are dying and starving. Starvation was acknowledged. Other than by Netanyahu, the entire world acknowledged systemic starvation, including Donald Trump, the president of the United States. So no, I don't think it's divided. I think there is an opinion that things need to change. It's just we got to keep building on that. That there needs to be a Palestinian state. That there needs to be a huge investment by the world to not just again give the Palestinians a classic example of be careful what you ask for, you might just get it. That's what Gaza was. What it needs to be is it's just like Charlie said. If it's not Gaza, if it's adjacent to the West Bank, if it's this giant state essentially, and not it wouldn't be giant by any means, but it's just this area where people can thrive and the world can trade. Yeah, sure, it's a naive vision of what could happen next, but it is what needs to happen next. If you want to talk about ending the endless wars, you need to realize the one endless war that needs to end immediately is the conflict with Israel, the Middle East conflict with Israel.
Well, Coach, I agree with you, but I think that if you look, when you speak of Charlie Kirk and the fact that he no longer supported Israel, and you look at his legion, I'm telling you, cutting across with the American people, the entire spectrum of opinion ideology, right, has turned progressively anti-Israel only because of what they did in Gaza. So I'm just saying, the progressives were already there when Kamala Harris was running. A super majority of Democratic voters thought the war in Gaza was a genocide. Right. This was part of her problem, is that she was still standing with Biden on that thing, and the right is right there with the Christian right, who viewed Israel, protected Israel on the basis from a theological perspective that the rise of the temple, was the sign for the second coming of Jesus. So that's where the evangelical community in the United States was so pro-Israel. Even they recognize that this is a genocide and can't stand with that. So I'm saying, yes, AIPAC is powerful. They own the politicians. Watch as those politicians get run out.
Well, I'm waiting patiently for that moment in time because
That is starting to happen. Well,
I
look at what's that? What's okay? What's that firebrand on the Republican side, Miss Green, from
well
Congress?
Marjorie
she's
Taylor Greene.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
Look what
literally
she's
just
saying.
posted on
Yeah,
Facebook.
but she's
Imagine.
leaving, so she has no,
No, I know. I'm just trying to tell you that when people from that perspective are being public about their opposition to Israel, when people like Charlie Kirk, I mean, this is deep in the passionate ideological Christian-based perspective of the Republican Party, also agrees with the progressives, with most of the
well,
Democratic electorate,
Well, even
that
if you go,
Israel's
if you went like before all this whole conflict happened, outside of the evangelicals, if you asked most conservative, people who brand themselves or consider themselves conservatives or Republican, outside of the evangelicals, and you ask them why it's important to support Israel, they have no idea. It's just part of the package. Oh, because that's what we do. Like that, we're supposed to. Like they wouldn't be able to articulate a reason why. I guess just as easily that could be removed from their agenda, and I could see the tide turning swiftly, really.
Plus,
Although,
Israel has a way of portraying themselves as the eternal victim too.
yeah,
Oh, again, I think the one of the things, Kevin Howard, that I admire about Israeli culture in Israel, notwithstanding how Israel was formed as a state or whatever, is that they have shown a remarkable amount of self-reflection, a capacity to critique themselves. Right. That's what for Haaretz to print the article they printed on the Sunday after October 7th, 2023, criticizing their own government for the worst tragedy in Israeli history, right, gives you an idea of the capacity of the Israelis to actually be honest in the face of severe issues. And so I think that that is going to be their strength in resuscitation. But until those people are held accountable, Netanyahu and whatever, right? You're going to see an abandonment in the United States. The United States will not cannot underwrite that country under those circumstances. Otherwise, we become a pariah state. And as powerful as we are not self-sufficient, right? We need international trade. We offer a benefit and a market for international trade, but we can't function if everyone isolates us along with Israel, right? So that's the limit of AIPAC's power, is that America is not going to sacrifice. We're not going to end the country in it, on the altar of defending Israeli genocide. We're not.
I feel like we're missing the strong evangelical ties to Israel, which is a real driving force for conservatives to vote or to support Israel. That's why I say I feel like they're still divided, because those strong evangelical voters and the conservatives it's almost biblical that they support Israel. That's what, when I say Marjorie Taylor Greene came out, she also came out and said, release the Epstein files still, while every other Republican is like, no, and doing everything they can to put that off. So
it's been an interesting few weeks with Marge there, hasn't it?
Right.
Yes.
She said she wasn't going to so I think she feels like she has nothing to lose at this
I
point.
see a clip
She
with her
doesn't have
talking about how she's like, people's paychecks, their wages aren't increasing,
Yes.
prices aren't going down.
Yes.
I'm like, am I hearing things? She
Oh,
actually
she
seems
actually
like
talked
she's
about,
actually
literally.
voicing the concerns of her constituents. Wow.
Look what happens when you have nothing to lose.
Yes,
She's not running for
exactly.
election. She may just say what she really thinks.
Well,
Hey Beth, would you say that Charlie Kirk is indicative of the evangelical community? I mean,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Especially the
His
I'm
wife
moderate
telling you,
certainly,
and
yes.
where it's going, certainly, because I mean, when you have the youth, but the support of the youth behind you, that's certainly the direction it's going. I mean, it's changing so much, right? People don't go to church. They don't do the traditional things that even the ones who still consider themselves part of that group, they express it in vastly different ways than even 20 years ago, I think.
and
And
he
I
was
think
that new-
that's what Charlie Kirk had, that was his appeal, that was his strength.
and
But
he
it was
and
sort
he
of
was
conspiratorial.
decidedly he had changed his view and his support of Israel. I mean, it's coming out of that. It's in that community deeply. I'm not saying there's no one in the evangelical community. I mean, there's still biblical basis by why they're aligned with Israel, but that does not require them to be aligned with this version of Israel.
No, that's what I
It's-
mean. Maybe not this generation, this new,
Yeah.
the young generation, Gen X or Gen Z, sorry, but I feel like there's still a significant portion of Christians who correlate Israel with their core religion. So maybe decades before we see that split, but I don't know. We'll see.
well, you can support Israel. You do not have to support what's going on. I mean, this is
Right.
not
That's right.
self-defense anymore. This is genocide. I mean, this is genocide. It doesn't mean you cannot, we can say this person's a potential criminal. We can't just shoot him dead. We this is a scenario which actually brings me to a whole nother point, because Beth brought up this point, and I have to ask Charlie too on this one and see what Kevin thinks, of course, as well. When you were talking about abortion, about being that there's many states that are talking about making it a crime, and you were saying what about the timeline for charging people with a crime? That's my question. Now, can moms really be charged with crimes after having an abortion? Can laws change and moms be charged with murdering?
Well, that was just me sort of putting out there those people that were very conservative voters who hadn't maybe been so in the past. And I had seen a meme or something that came across that Alabama was going to start criminalizing abortion for the mother. Before, it was other states did it for the providers, not so much for the mother. So if they did that, and it has been touted for the entire United States, that if we criminalized abortion for the mother, that would be considered murder. Now, I don't know what type of murder, but in most states, there is no statute of limitation for murder. So if they did do that, potentially,
yeah.
but I could be wrong. I mean, you guys are the lawyers.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
I always felt it's such a cop-out to say, like, if you truly, truly believe that abortion, you equate that with murder, but you're only going to go after the providers and not the women. I mean, it's a freaking cop-out. It's just because the optics of going after the women don't fit your overall scheme. But in reality, if that's really what you believe, and I don't, people can believe that it's not. There are crazier beliefs than that. Even though I don't agree at all, that's something that I understand their philosophy. But if that's how you really feel, then you can't do any half measures.
Well, that is how the law is written, right?
Yeah, well, but Charlie, here's the thing, and you well know this as a practicing attorney, right? The limitation for the retroactive application of the law is due process. This is a constitutional principle. A person, you can't prosecute someone for an action that was perfect, that was legal,
Right.
that they were free to do, and then the law changes after the fact.
I agree.
And right, and so that's all
it would have nothing to do with statute of limitations. It's
right, it has nothing to do
it's due process. Yeah,
it's due process, and so yeah. I mean, it again. This was an issue that Obama promised to resolve by codifying Roe v. Wade. This was an issue that Biden was could have done and did not do, and Democrats have been calling for it. So here we are. Now it's back to the states. And yeah, okay, Alabama, if they want to make it illegal and they want to prosecute women in court for doing it, again, they're going to still have the same problems we had pre-Roe, right? Which the question of when life begins. The reversal of Roe did not establish that life begins at conception. The law, so murder requires you to kill a life. Right. And so they're going to have to, as they start prosecuting women for having abortions at some stage in their pregnancy, they're still going to have the burden of establishing that the fetus was a life. Right. Which remains an open question as to when that begins.
There is no open question with conservatives. They believe life starts at conception.
That's the wonderful thing is that the state law has to conform with the Constitution, and that. If you go back pre-Roe, pre-1971, 72, right? If you go back when abortion was illegal in many states, right? This was one of the linchpins of establishing it as murder. I mean, you can't just arbitrarily say in the law that life starts at this point, and that
I didn't say that.
No, I know. That's what they're saying.
That.
They're saying as a matter. See, this is the weakness. It's based on their faith. There's nothing wrong with believing that as a matter of faith. There's something wrong under the U.S. Constitution when we have separation of church and state to say based on a particular faith, this act is criminal starting at this point. That does not pass constitutional muster. So they're going to have a problem as they start prosecuting women for having abortions because they're going to have to establish when they're going to have an objective way of establishing when life began. If there's any benefit to how Roe v. Wade was written by Harry Blackmun, the conservative justice from Minnesota, right, with Roe v. Wade, is he set up a structure for answering the question, when does life begin? He set up the trimester thing, and he talked about viability. That's back on the table again. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Alabama and Mississippi and all these states that want to start it at conception. Can they enforce it under the U.S. Constitution? Right?
I don't know. I don't know why we go back to the Constitution. Clearly, the Constitution can't enforce anything during this administration. Right. I'm just saying.
Well,
just and that out there.
Well, and that has become a concern because as much as we're not in a constitutional crisis,
I swear my coffee palate's got so ridiculous.
Oh, Charlie, we're gonna have to mute Charlie for a second.
He was back talking me, I think. Don't talk about anything intimate there, Charlie.
I know. Watch out the hot mic.
Hot mics. So that.
Hey, Charlie.
About coffee.
I'm ready for a couple. That has
Oh, yeah.
become a concern. But we're not in a constitutional crisis because this is for the most part, which brings me to a whole nother point. This is for the most part a Supreme Court that sees it this administration's way. So there has been some lag time when this administration actually agrees to do what the courts tell them to do. But I think, and I'm saying I think, granted, I'm thinking out loud here. I think for the most part, they have. I'm going to ask everybody here: has the administration done pretty much what the courts have told them to do? Ultimately, there has been some lag time. I agree, but has the administration done pretty much what the courts have told them to do? Because at this point, the Supreme Court has ruled everything in their favor, which brings me to my next question.
Well, the one famous case was the due process case for the gentleman who got kicked out of the country, without due process and sent to a prison, foreign prison, which you talk about, and so ultimately he was brought back. Look, it takes time, but yes, this administration so far has not simply ignored rulings of the Supreme Court, right? Or legislation by the Congress current legislation by the Congress requiring them to do certain things. So I don't think we're in a constitutional crisis because yet, but can we be? Sure. But I've said before, this administration is about to lose their first major case, and that's going to be when the tariff regime and the authority of the president to unilaterally impose tariffs in the absence of congressional opinion will be struck down by this Supreme Court, right? It is not a rubber stamp court. The president really is powerful. Obama demonstrated how powerful the president can be with how he prosecuted the media. No president prosecuted more members of the press than Barack Obama, and yet he had the authority to do it. So I'm just saying, so the court will limit Donald Trump, and until he demonstrates that he is above the court, that's when we have a constitutional crisis.
I don't think we're going to get there, because if you had asked me even maybe a month ago which way they'd go with that, I would have thought, oh, they're ultimately going to say, no, you know what, Congress ultimately should control the power of the purse, and that you can't just use vague emergency powers or saying it's emergency. I don't believe that anymore. I think they're going to allow them to do it. I don't think they're going to say no to anything. So I don't think we're going to get in a constitutional crisis in that manner, because I don't think the court is going to put any guide rails on it whatsoever.
Well, I could tell you, Charlie, if that's true, and I mean, as a court watcher, and I know you are a court watcher, it's your profession. If that's true, we do have a constitutional crisis.
Yeah, I agree.
That's right. If our Constitution works, the way our Constitution system works is that we have separations of power, and it's through the conflict of those separations of power that the Constitution finds its meaning. So if the Supreme Court is not going to assert itself, right, in an independent way, or if the Congress is not going to assert themselves in an independent way, then we do have a king. And so yeah, I hope that that's not the case. I've predicted it. I'm putting my betting nickel down that the U.S. Supreme Court will reject, in the same way that they rejected President Biden's forgiving of student loan debt based on COVID emergency authority, right? You cannot use emergency authority to make a permanent change. Okay. You need permanent authority to make a permanent change. You can do temporary things in an emergency, and that's authorized. Right? What Trump is doing with the tariffs, he's endeavoring to be able to establish these tariffs permanently, which would be necessary in order to convince American multinational corporations to bring manufacturing back to the States. He cannot do it permanently. If he can't do it permanently, they won't move.
Biden obviously did not have the power of the court that Trump does. I mean, Trump, they're in his pocket. And I'll tell you, I'll go a step further on this. That one, and we'll see. I mean, I hope they don't just let it go, but I do really believe that they are going to allow him to continue to do this. And I also believe that and it's a very big if the Democrats ever actually control both both parts of Congress and the White House, that they will get rid of the filibuster and they will pack the court because it'll be their only solution. And again, I don't think that's a good thing, but I think that is what will happen. Now, I take that back. I don't think that's what will happen because I don't think they'll ever get both houses back. But if they did, if they do have the Senate and the House and the White House, I think that's exactly what they'll do. Because by then
Charlie,
there'll be two brand new justices, because Alito and Thomas will both retire towards the end of Trump's presidency. They'll put on two new, same versions but decades younger, and so you're going to have an entire court that is going to continue to rule this way for generations. And if the Democrats don't use that opportunity, I don't even know what the point of them having a party is.
well, Charlie, it saddens me that you feel that way because you are a lawyer and a practicing attorney, and you understand the implications.
I do. I don't say it. Listen, I don't say it with any happiness.
Yeah, but I will say this is that let us not forget that it was the conservative majority on the U.S. Supreme Court that upheld the Affordable Care Act, right? With the Chief Justice, joining the liberals on the court with the deciding vote, saying that legislation was constitutional, was within the authority of the Congress to pass, and stuff like that. I'm just saying it is.
Seems like Roberts has changed since then, though. Roberts has changed since then. I don't know what happened with that.
Let us see. Because that's what I'm saying. I mean, look, it wasn't that long ago. All I'm saying is that was during Trump's first term.
Yeah,
So we will see. You're right, because this decision is coming up. This is. It would be the court taking the same rationale last year, 2 years ago, to reverse the authority of a U.S. President Joe Biden. And then here they have a similar scenario where a U.S. president, Donald Trump, is exercising their exclusive authority, and they don't use the same rationale. They actually reverse the rationale and say that he can establish a permanent change in policy that normally would be the Congress's authority based on an emergency rationale. I mean, it would expose the court as being fundamentally biased and make your point. You put your betting nickel, I'll put my betting nickel. I think the court is going to honor the fact that he's using the wrong authority. He needs congressional support.
I would hope so. And like I said, my opinion has changed on this over the last month or so, but I would hope so, but I don't really, I'm not believing that anymore. I think it would require Roberts to kind of transition back to somewhat more that he was, and it would require Barrett to step up in a way that we haven't really seen yet. Because outside of that, the Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Alito and Thomas, they're not going to change it.
So here's an interesting thing about John Roberts. I still remember his confirmation hearings when he said he considers himself the umpire that's going to call the foul balls.
And strikes.
And that's something Charlie just brought up, is has he changed? I don't think he's changed, really. I do think I've been surprised. The big surprise was the ruling that the president can pretty much get away with anything he wants to because the president has to be bold and decisive in his decision making. I was concerned about that ruling, but I understood his logic, not necessarily if I were the Chief Justice, that would be my logic. And Amy Coney Barrett has been pretty impressive for the most part. Even the other day, I watched her on an interview where she said, "What if Donald Trump calls you?" And she said, "I'd assume he got the wrong number," because they're not friends. And she's not, this eternally grateful for making her the justice.
No, I don't. That's why I think that what little hope I have in the court outside of the liberal justice is her. I mean, she was the most impressive going in. She was the most impressive jurist going in.
Yeah,
brilliant jurist. That's without question. Do I think a lot of her ideas are like flat out kooky? Yes, I do. But brilliant jurist from Notre Dame. So where I wouldn't say that about Brett Kavanaugh. I would not put brilliant jurists in front of Brett Kavanaugh in any way, shape, or form. I put Gorsuch way ahead of him in terms of.
Yeah.
Well, Gorsuch is brilliant. Amy Coney Barrett is brilliant. Sandra Day O'Connor was brilliant. Bruce Ginsburg.
Antonin Scalia was brilliant. I mean, right. I mean,
but the thing that nobody knows.
Yeah.
So let me just point this out about Antonin Scalia. He wrote 150 liberal opinions in his tenure. he recommended Keegan to the court, to Obama. He said, I know you're not going to nominate one of us, so give us Keegan, who actually Obama didn't listen to the recommendation. His first nominee was Sotomayor, but then ultimately Keegan got the nod. So I still remain extremely hopeful that when we don't pack the courts, because as much as I want to say this is the only hope of the Democratic Party, it very well may be the only hope of the Republican Party at some point to do a reverse what the action did to reverse in the first place. And then the other thing is my biggest concern about the courts is that we do take the Senate back in the midterms and stop all Trump nominees, just sandbag all Trump nominees, and then we're on a path to some sort of judicial success again. Doesn't mean like Charlie said, we're far away from Clarence Thomas and Daniel Alito stepping down, retiring, or suddenly falling off the face of the earth like Scalia did. But, at least it's unfortunate to say this, but if that does happen and we have control of the Senate, at least we can pause the lunatic nominees that'll come from Donald Trump, because it's no longer going to be Kavanaugh, who we're not impressed with. It's no longer going to be Gorsuch, who is can say he understands the Constitution. It's going to be Sidney Powell or some crazed lunatic like that. And she will, if they have control of the Senate, she will somehow, some way slip past the goalie, just like Pete Hegseth did.
But you talk about constitutional crisis, though. If we tried to pull that maneuver, I shouldn't say we. If the Democrats try to pull that maneuver, a la Mitch McConnell,
yes,
unlike the Democrats, the Republicans would not stand for it. They would not just allow that to happen. There is no way. There is where you'd get your constitutional crisis, because they would not just accept that.
Well, how would they bypass it?
Who knows? Who knows? But
because the time for the nominee runs out.
Certainly would not be the way the Democrats were. They're just like, oh, well, we didn't think you were going to be that mean, but, guess you win. Like the Republicans don't act that way. They would find by hook or crook, they would prevent that.
You say that, but I just want to point out, this is the establishment Democrats and the establishment Republicans have been playing good cop, bad cop for generations. I'm old enough to remember when Tip O'Neill used to go out there and eviscerate Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan would turn around and eviscerate Tip O'Neill, and then those two Irishmen would go in the back and have a drink of good scotch. Right? Look, I mean,
entirely.
No, of course it's a different time, but what I'm trying to say, but the fact is that the establishment parties work together, right? I mean, the idea that wasn't it George? Did not in Biden's last week of office, he named two fresh aircraft carriers, one after George W. Bush, one after Bill Clinton, right? Because they are part of the same party.
Right.
No, there was a time. I mean, Sandra Day O'Connor got confirmed by a 99 vote in the Senate. I mean, will we ever see a 99 vote in the Senate again? And that was Ruth Bader Ginsburg's story too. And I believe it was.
Yes.
I thought there was even one more, but I can't remember now. Here's the thing about what Charlie just said. The Democrats didn't, like Charlie said, if somehow we have the Senate, Donald Trump nominates Sidney Powell, if somehow the Republicans bypass the fact that we're just going to let the nomination expire, let's be clear why the Democrats let the nomination expire. Because they told Obama Garland's not who he wants. So they let it expire. They did not want Merrick Garland to be Obama's nominee. Obama was trying to appease and avoid this feeling. It was a sort of a naive move on Obama's part. Can we get another 99 vote? No, you're not going to get it from Merrick Garland, I assure you. If you even got 51 votes with the vice president at the heel of the vote, you were lucky for that. And that could have happened if, like Charlie said, Mitch McConnell let the vote happen. So to say the Democrats just felt like, no, we're a little too skittish to really. No, they didn't want Merrick Garland. This goes back to the old Kamala Harris picked the vice president she picked. What a surprise she didn't pick Josh Shapiro. No, Josh Shapiro said, I'm out. I'm not doing this with you, Kamala. And then she had to pick somebody. I assure you, Josh Shapiro did not want to be Kamala's running mate. And if he expressed any interest, she would have very well been his running mate. And we may have seen a victory. It's that he chose not to do it. So, in as far as constitutional crisis, we have to see what happens with the tariffs. My feeling is Chief Justice Roberts takes taxes very serious. You mentioned Obamacare. He was the one that said it's not a penalty or it's not a tax. It was one or the other. He takes taxes very serious. He was the one that said, let's hear this case. Every case gets 45 minutes. He was the one that created this newfound 3 2-hour sessions. No one had ever heard of the Supreme Court listening to a case for 6 hours. I mean, that's literally at the average rate was 8 cases, right? Is that what 45 minutes is? 3 hours times 8. So that's literally 8 cases. So I still have faith in Chief Justice Roberts. I still have faith, and my other faith is that it takes the court so long to rule that we take back the House, and that's the end of the tariff nonsense. That's just my prediction.
Putting a bow on that, then, Coach, what do you think about the government shutdown where we are?
I've never seen it get this far. Never.
I'm happy.
You're happy, Beth?
Yeah, because
I think the Democrats screw. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'd love to hear.
Well, they completely screwed this up. It would have been much more effective for them to allow those premiums to skyrocket and cull the anger of the voters in that way. And this way, I'm not saying they're going to be blamed completely for the shutdown, but I think if they could go back, they would have done that now. And now they're boxed in, and now it's just a bad thing. But I don't think they're accomplishing anything by the shutdown.
No, I think what they're trying to do is I think Republicans learned quite a long time ago that public opinion about ethics and morals get you nowhere.
Right.
And holding strong and people feeling like their party is fighting for them is getting them farther. And I think that's what the Democrats are trying to put off. I love that your point is I'm swayed because your point was so good that I don't think it's going to change with just this. The Republicans are right that they need to go through a appropriate means to change that, but just the fact that they're standing strong, when I say they don't have much to lose, I kind of believe that they've sunk. I mean, Democrats don't even like Democrats anymore.
Well, just think of it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, think of it. If they had just, we're at open enrollment right now. If they had just allowed the government to stay open, this would all be hitting in the next week. Now, the way things are, Republicans say, "Hey, listen, we're willing to negotiate those things. We could have changed that. You just had to keep the government open." So now they don't face the fire in the way they would have, because those things would have expired. The millions and millions of people's premiums would have skyrocketed, and it would be happening next week.
Well, people are already getting those letters, so some people know that it's coming. But when I say they have nothing to lose, nobody is really rooting for Democrats right now. I think they're really just trying to. What do they have to lose by standing strong? I think the Republicans, they are going to have to come. They're going to have to come with something. It doesn't look like the Democrats are going anywhere. I mean, seriously, really, what do they have to lose if the midterms?
No, Beth, this is what they have to lose. It's notwithstanding the fact that Bill Clinton made the Democrats the party of Wall Street. The Democrats is still the party who believes that government is the answer, can be the answer to fix problems and challenge problems. That's still the Democratic Party. This Republican administration was elected by people who wanted him to dismantle the government, right? This is exactly whatever Doge did, whatever those initial series of layoffs cutting across the government did in the first 4 months of this administration, this government shutdown is doing the rest. I can assure you, if this government, this is further dismantling of the infrastructure of the federal government put in by neocons and neoliberals over the last 32 years. This is only doing what they want. So yeah, let's
Well,
do this for another month.
I'm going to give you the exact comment or rebuttal you gave me. People don't pay attention to that. The majority of people that are going to really feel this pain are not everyday neighbors, and they're people that work for the federal government. I mean, the people that aren't getting paid right now, they do get retro pay, which I think Donald Trump was saying we're not going to pay them if they, which is completely illegal. But his threats were, if the Democrats don't open back up, we're going to start firing Democrats. These are just voters. They're, like Democratic people that work for the federal government. They're just going to get fired because the party they decided to vote for can't get their shit together. I mean, like, that's not party anymore. That's just complete.
Well, I don't think he can. I don't think he can target it that way, because you don't know who people vote for, per se, right? All I'm saying here is, so I think the thousands of federal employees who got laid off, a good deal of them probably voted Republican historically, and may have even voted for Trump. What I'm trying to say, it's not just targeted to, I mean, again.
No, that's what
I
think that's what Trump said.
Oh, of course, it's what he said. That this is what he does. He says all this madness, but can he practically do that? I mean, no, he's fine.
No, but my point is, like, I don't know why we're still even conversating about, can he do that? If he wants to do it, regardless of whether it's legal or ethical or whatever. Oh, absolutely.
I agree with you,
and
Beth.
People are going
I'm
to
just saying
him.
practically, I'm saying practically, even if he wanted to do it, how do you functionally know, okay, here is the Department of Education, right? And you have these 5,000 employees. Okay, 2,600 of them voted for Kamala Harris. They're fired. But these over here, these 400 voted for me. No, how does he get that information? I'm saying he may want to do that. He certainly will say he could do that.
Doge has that information.
Well, he does that in a way. Actually, Doge may have that information. He does that in a way.
Don't tell me Doge doesn't have that information. Come on,
he does that in a way. He does that in a way where he singles out states too, and
of course he could way he could do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
but let me wrap this session up with one question, because we're talking about what Donald Trump can do. I'm going to wrap this up today with one big question. Just say, and I'm not wishing the man any bad, just say Donald Trump is no longer capable of being president for one reason or another.
One reason or another.
Already?
Justice, there's been a lot of talk about it. Chief Justice John Roberts said the only person I'll swear in as president is J.D. Vance, because there's Sidney Powell saying I'll be a better takeover than him, and J.D. Vance, President J.D. Vance. What happens to MAGA?
No, MAGA will continue.
Really?
I think MAGA will. Yeah, I think.
You think he can convey
the same
gravitas that?
I mean, I don't think he has. I don't think he has the same legs, or he's the same Teflon effect that Trump has. But they stand with him. He has an opportunity to keep him. The question is,
they'll accept him for until there's another choice, and then
until there's another right. Exactly. He
he'd never get reelected. They'd find he would never get renominated. Even they would find another nominee.
My personal opinion is it's going to come crumbling down, because there's one thing about Donald Trump that J.D. Vance doesn't have. Donald Trump talks to these people like J.D. Vance continues to try to convey an articulate message. That's not what the Trump sycophants, and that's what not the Trump reverers want to hear. They want to hear that.
Coach, you show your contempt, my friend. I mean, my gosh, my brother, you this is just another backhanded version of calling them deplorables. That they can't. That J.D. Vance is too articulate. It's
J.D. Vance can't stand Trump.
They need someone to be incoherent like Trump, right? Come on, man.
Every single person who is supporting Trump in his cabinet has spoken out against him before they had their. With maybe the exception of Pan Bondi. And that's all
I'd say the one hopeful thing I'll have said this entire time, I think post-Trump, it slowly starts to resemble the party that it was. I
I
think it'll
agree with
take
that.
some time,
Slowly,
but I just
slowly,
don't
but I
think
agree
there's
with that.
anyone that's going to replace Trump. I don't think there's going to be a second version. It'll be something different, and I don't think MAGA is just going to go away. But I do think the party will slowly start to resemble something that we recognize.
Well, I think that it's important that we also recognize who who is the Republican voter today. I'm telling you, it's changed.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yes, when you look at the counties that voted for Trump in 2024 and the fact that they represent 38% of the GDP of the country, right? The working class and the middle class have shifted to the Republican Party, and the professional class and wealth has shifted to the Democratic Party. So there's been a shift. And so whoever is going to be the post-Trump leader of the party is still going to have to respond to people who feel like they've been left behind, who that the economy doesn't serve them, right? Or the government doesn't serve them. And so whether it be JD Vance or whoever, I don't know. But yeah, I'm with Charlie. I think it will the Trumpian version will slowly fade, but the people who are influencing that is that electorate, and now it's the working class, now it's the middle class, and they're different than the old Republican Party. How about that?
Well, my
Yeah,
hope is, go ahead, Beth.
no, I was just going to say, I think he does make an excellent point. The people that I notice who are blue collar workers, they are staunch supporters of Trump. Bernie Sanders voters, staunch
Yes.
supporters of Trump, which is so, to me, is so mind boggling because their goals, their policies are like at opposite ends, complete polar opposites. And it makes you wonder why these blue collar workers or middle class who can barely make it now thought Trump was going to be their Bernie Sanders.
The thing is, it is what is at the heart. Bernie's tagline was that we needed a political revolution. I mean, people understand.
His tagline
Okay,
was
what
"Feel
is
the burn."
no. I know "Feel the Burn" is one of his taglines, but what the core policies that he spoke about was not incremental. We needed a political revolution, and he talked about that. What Trump is doing is what a political revolution looks like. It would have been different if Bernie did it, but we're talking about a radical change to the power structure and the government of the United States. That's what Bernie was talking about. That's what Trump is talking about. They certainly have two different approaches to that, right? And two different appeals to that. But that's why those same people who would have voted for Bernie vote for Trump, because he's the only other voice who's talking about a political revolution, who's talking anti-establishment. Now, if the Democrats would let any of their anti-establishment people get to the general election, you would be surprised that they would get tremendous support. But
No, they're
the
just too scared.
Democrats,
Yeah,
the,
too
the
scared. They're
Democrats
scared to
run
do
them
it.
out of the party. They ran Tulsi Gabbard out of the party. They ran RFK Jr. out of the party. They emasculated Bernie Sanders. Well, look, so this is the only choice you give to the American public is someone like Trump. Well, then that's what you get.
We
You know,
have to
so
agree, and I'm probably going to wrap it up at this, is we have to agree what people wanted was change. What they
yes.
also wanted, which I know you said it was sort of a way of saying deplorables, what they also wanted is a person that can't articulate a sentence, which is Bernie
That no
Sanders,
one wants
which is
that. No one wants
Bernie
that, coach.
Sanders
That's
doesn't
cool.
really he doesn't come across as a smooth sailing
Oh, you've
politician.
hurt my feelings. I think
No,
Bernie Sanders
that
is
is
excellent.
simply not true. That
He
is
doesn't
simply
he's
not
not
true.
like I mean, people love W because he fumbled on his words. One time he was trying to say "fool me once, fool me twice." I'm the fool me, fool me,
Oh,
fool me, fool me,
Coach,
so
and
you're saying
people love
Americans like
that.
idiots?
yeah, no,
No,
coach.
Bernie Sanders isn't an idiot, but he talks like a New York Jew. I mean, he just comes out like you don't normally hear that out of a politician. That was
Well,
probably the wrong.
coach, look at
This was
look.
W trying to use the line, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." I believe it came out as, "What a terrible thing to lose one's
Yes.
mind, or to never have one in the first place."
Yeah. Well, okay, but coach,
But
okay,
people
let's
didn't mind it.
no, coach, stop. Let's look at the Obama supporters. All right. because you could go to Idaho and you could go to Montana and they voted, more people in Idaho and Montana voted for Obama than had voted for any Democrat in a generation. And what I'm trying to say to you is the idea that what these people wanted was a boob, was someone inarticulate. It's like that when they were supportive of Obama. His coalition was
Because
very much
Well,
yes.
but what
Obama
was
had
the
a high emotional
okay, keep in
IQ.
mind one thing. One was the condescending nickname that Republicans coined for President Obama. They used to call him Professor Obama.
Professor. Yeah, no,
Okay,
hey, I'm not
you
saying
think anybody will ever call me Professor Trippy? No, I don't see that happening.
if
I
you look
don't
at the
see.
Obama coalition, you'll see a lot of overlap with Bernie Sanders. The idea that an articulate, smooth, it don't get smoother or more articulate than Obama, right? I'm trying to prove your point that is not true. That what the American electorate wants is someone who looks like they rolled off the back of a truck and never went to school.
Well,
No,
we're
they
But
don't
you
trying
want
to
don't
to be
go to
correlate.
another extreme.
But
We
you
would
don't
no,
say.
correlate
oh,
how much.
what's what you're saying? You're talking about someone. Yes, I understand Trump is incoherent. He throws out all these statements and stuff like that. But that's not his appeal.
But
Is
people's
that he can't put
disdain, MAGA's
No,
disdain, Trump's disdain is all because it's all geared toward Obama. Everything that Trump does, wants to do, wants to achieve is all about meeting or exceeding Obama. He despises Obama.
yes, but the thing about it is that
And he took
can
those
we
voters.
can we be honest about Obama? I mean, seriously, Obama did betray the very voters who 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 supported him. I mean,
I don't
what
see
he
it that
did,
way. I think he
okay,
did what was
okay,
best for
yeah,
everyone.
he went out of his way to make sure that Wall Street was covered, and then he had every
That was
excuse in the
Nancy
world.
Pelosi.
No, 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 no. He
but
joined. Look at the votes. What do you mean? No, no, that's what I'm saying.
to
Obama
that
had to.
point,
He not only voted for TARP, but he not only he made the decision to pay Wall Street after we bailed out AIG $180 billion. The Wall Street banks who crashed the economy took out insurance that bankrupt AIG. We paid for that insurance, and when it came to paying those payments, Americans were protesting in front of AIG to say, don't pay them 100 cents on the dollar
Yeah, because
because
we
the pension, right? And
so to that
Obama
point
paid them
though,
100 cents on the dollar. And that's
I'm
what I'm saying. Obama, as smooth as he is, betrayed the very people because he didn't bail out the pensioners. He didn't bail out the homeowners who got destroyed because of what Wall Street did. He bailed out Wall Street and then held no one accountable. I mean,
so
but you
I'm gonna
say that he had no, I'm sorry, Trippy. I know you
no,
need to
go ahead,
wrap it
go
up,
ahead.
but
yeah.
I'll have to send you the video, but it tells you exactly what happened on that day. And Nancy Pelosi, they were supposed to meet with the banks, and the banks were like, "We don't have 24 hours." So they went in, and it was almost like his hands were tied. He can't say
No,
bankers can't take your bonuses. He
Beth,
was
I agree with you that he had to help the banks. What I don't agree with is that he didn't help anyone else. That the banks are not the only ones who elected him. The American
there were
people, yes, we
several
can.
policies,
No,
there were several things out there to help people. They
8
just
million people lost their homes. No, no,
So
no.
I'm
yes,
only
because
gonna
you
Pensioners
had
lost 2/3 of their pensions. He did not bail out the pensions.
those
He did
people
not
had
bail
no
out.
business buying those homes when they could not afford them.
It is that lie.
The
It is that.
banks.
No, 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 no. The banks, the banks designed financial
we
products
we're gonna
that blew up the economy
I know,
and
Trippy. I'll let it
cost
go.
these people their houses. It wasn't that they were buying too much house. That is a lie. I'm going to talk about that very lie in my podcast,
I'm not gonna
Breadcrumbs.
yes, breadcrumbs
It's
is we're gonna wrap it up talking about breadcrumbs. I'm gonna say this. I'm just gonna quote Warren Buffett on everything you just said, including Beth saying the bank said we don't have 24 hours. Warren Buffett phrased it like this: when a runner collapses on the track, you don't debate what type of CPR, you give them CPR. That's what happened. I don't blame Obama for it. We all said Obama had his hand on the bludgeon sword with the bloody sword. We got it. I don't blame him for it. There was only time to act. There was no more time to deliberate. There's paralysis through analysis, and there was no time for that.
Well, so
I
for the
don't
8
blame
million
Obama.
people who lost
I
their
Wait.
houses,
I
for the
don't.
8
There
million
was
people
no.
who lost their pensions, for the
Yes,
millions
I
of
don't know
Americans
the
who lost.
answer. I
No, no,
don't
no.
know the answer. I know the answer from the greatest investor in the world. When a runner collapses on the track, you don't debate the CPR. You give him
I'm
CPR.
not saying that they should not have done TARP. What I am saying is there was a duty for him as the leader of the people who elected him to make sure that people got the help they needed. Did
There were
they? They did
programs,
not.
but I am Exhibit
All
A.
those
I was.
programs failed. All those programs failed. They did not help the American public. The people who elected Obama were not made better off after Obama. I'm sorry.
I
Not
was.
even close.
I was a bartender who, on paper, made $17,000 a year, and I alone purchased a $207,000 house back in 2005. I had no $17,000 a year.
All I'm
I had
saying
no
is,
business buying a house. I
Beth,
mean,
the reason why you were
luckily,
able to do that is because Wall Street designed the instruments to do that.
that's
You
my
can't,
point.
you can't force, no, you can't force a bank or a finance company to lend you money based on that salary. They did it on purpose, and they
That's what I'm
gave you
saying.
the.
That's my
No, it's not.
point.
No. My
Yeah, you
point
guys
is,
are
it's
agreeing.
not. It's not my. It is not. The idea is, you just because you wanted to buy a house that maybe you couldn't have afforded did not force the lenders to lend you the money. The reason why they lent you the money is because they had a scheme for making money even though they knew you couldn't pay it back. That is what
We
blew
are
up the
saying the
economy.
same thing. Yes,
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
you
So
guys are
we're
agreeing.
agreeing.
but
You
that does
are
not
agreeing.
mean it's your fault that the economy crashed. It's not your fault. You didn't
Aren't you
create
the
the
party
scheme.
of responsibility, personal
No.
responsibility?
Guys,
No,
we
no,
got to
no.
continue this because
Okay.
you guys are agreeing.
So
And there is no even agreeing to disagree. You guys are agreeing. And all I did was throw in there like a olive branch of you don't debate the CPR, which is true. Somehow
Which
we had
is
to bail out.
excellent.
yeah. So
I was just trying to
the
make the point.
the free market is the free market for the people, but for the people who are wealthy and run the economy, they get bailed
It's a
out.
whole nother
That's the
subject that
bottom
we're going to
line.
get to, and we're going to
We
get to
don't
it.
get
I love
bailed
this.
out.
But
They get
what
bailed
you're
out.
talking about, Kevin, is a
Thank you,
whole nother
Obama.
subject because it's about
Yeah, we can do
the
next.
powerful, the funded, I guess, the wealthy. It's always been that. Now, how do we change that is a whole nother topic. But let's talk about breadcrumbs for a minute.
Go ahead, Coach.
So let's wrap it up. So Kevin, the author of Onward at Last. Go ahead, Kevin. Just tell us the author and the podcast, and we're going to start wrapping it up.
No, hey, this is a great conversation. I love talking to you guys, Charlie and Beth and Coach Trippy and stuff like that. Yes. So as for the book, and thank you for just a moment. Yes, it's called Onward at Last, the 2024 Presidential Election Edition. It's a series of social commentaries where I try to help each of us examine how we find ourselves where we are today. And to continue that conversation, I established Breadcrumbs, a podcast for people who know that it's not working. I don't know that anyone who's grown up in America thought that we would be in the country that we're in today. It's important that we understand how we got here so that we could figure out how we can what we can do to fix this. And that's the breadcrumbs that I'm talking about. Those special clues that help you when you're lost and you're trying to get back home. And so join me for the conversation. It's a weekly podcast. It's released every Wednesday, and it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, and it's on Patreon. And thank you so much. This was a great
Thank you,
conversation
guys.
as always.
We are going to do this again 2 weeks, guys. Thank you.
In
This has
2 weeks,
been-
I'm gonna have a picture of you guys. Remember, I told you we had a party. We went to some kind of club or something. And
Oh yeah.
I found it. I just forgot to bring it.
yeah. We got to look
Oh,
back.
This is Beth
Charlie
stepping out.
and,
I'm looking
and
forward to it.
Trippy.
Heck yeah. I'm going to love this. All right, guys.